Hello there and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, your destination for everything knitting and crochet. I'm your By Crafty bestie, Marley Bird, and in this video, we will learn how to make the Sazerac knit cable sweater. Hello and welcome to the Sazerac Cable Knit Sweater. I am super excited to get you started on this journey, making this beautiful sweater weather accessory. It is definitely a favorite in my wardrobe and I know it will be in yours. In this video, I will get you started with the lower body of the sweater. We will cast on to work in the round and dabble with some seed stitch, some cable stitches, and along the way, we're going to learn how to read those cable charts. So if you have that pattern and your materials, let's go ahead and dive in. The Sazerac Cable Knit Sweater is made from the bottom up, working in the round till you get to the armholes, and then we work back and forth for the top. In this video, we will discuss the bottom portion of the sweater. We will cast on the number of stitches written in the pattern and work 5 rounds of seed stitch. It's at that point we will continue on working our cable panel. Now the cable panel is different depending on the size you are making. So you want to make sure that you are following along with the instructions for the cable panel for your size. In this video, I will be following along with the extra small cable panel size to demonstrate the stitches and how to read that cable chart. To begin with this pattern, you want to grab your yarn of choice, whether it's a long color changing variegated like this one or a solid color like this one, totally up to you. You also want to get your circular needles, and remember, we're making this bottom portion of the sweater in the round, so you want to make sure that your circular needles are long enough to hold all of the stitches that will be going around the body of your sweater. So these right here, they probably are a little bit too small. I would need longer ones. With your yarn and needles in hand, it's time to go ahead and cast on the number of stitches you need for the size you're making. Looking at the pattern, you can see that underneath the bottom edging, we need to cast on a stitch multiple based on the size you are making. If you've never read a pattern before, just know that the first number outside of the parentheses is the smallest size. So for this example, this is the extra small. That's the size I will be following along with in this video. And then we have the medium large, the extra large 2X, the 3X, 4X, the 5X, 6X size. What I find really helpful is if you grab yourself a highlighter and just highlight the size you are making, even just once, that will help you remember what number you're supposed to be following along with. All right, so if you need to do that, that is really helpful. Once we cast on 120 stitches, we will join to work in the round and then continue on with seed stitch. So let's go ahead, grab our yarn and our needles and cast on some stitches. You can use any cast on you wish for your sweater. I prefer the long tail cast on, so I always guesstimate a pretty good amount for the number of stitches I need and then place a slip knot directly onto my needle. Once I get that slip knot on my needle, I put my working yarn towards my right and my tail yarn towards my left. It's at this point I will hold my needle in my right hand, making sure I have a hold of that yarn on my needle. The yarn that is over here towards my left, I want to wrap that around my thumb. The yarn over here towards my right, I want to wrap that around my finger. If I grasp the tails of those two yarns that I just thread, I kind of get a slingshot. Now I have a slingshot and I'm ready to begin the long tail cast on. I start at the base of my thumb with my needle and I go up my thumb, swivel around to the tip of the finger and go down my finger. Doing so has now created a space right here with the yarn that's around my thumb, and my needle with the yarn around it that's from my finger, I'm going to just swing that right through that space. Let the yarn fall off my thumb, give a gentle tug, and now I have 2 stitches. Let's do that again. Tail is over my thumb, working yarn is over my finger, I have my slingshot. I go up my thumb, down my finger, through that window that's created with my thumb, I like to put my finger right here on that yarn that's on my needle, let the yarn drop off my thumb, give the ends of the yarn a little tug, and it tightens up that stitch right on the needle. Then you position your hands once again and do it all over. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Now, I know some of you are really going to struggle with doing the long tail cast on with one hand. So let me show you how to do it with two hands because you might find it a little bit easier. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold the working yarn over here in our right hand and take our tail yarn and just take your thumb, like you're going to grab that yarn with your thumb on top, scoop underneath it and just pull it up. Okay, let me show you again. Grab the yarn, take your thumb, go underneath it and come up. Now take your needle, go to the base of the thumb just like we did before, go up the thumb. Now with your yarn in your right hand, wrap it around your needle just like you would when you knit, and then regrasp your needle. Bring that needle through that stitch on your thumb and off. Imagine your thumb is your knitting needle, okay? So here we are. I have my yarn on my knitting needle, which is my thumb. I'm going into the stitch, yarning over my needle, coming out the stitch and off. Can you see that? Going into the stitch, around the needle, out the stitch and off. Okay, let's go ahead and get all of the stitches cast on for your size. As you're casting on your stitches, you don't want to have to stop and count every single time. So I find it very helpful to put a marker every 20th stitch. That way you have a very easy place to go back to and count all of your stitches in 20s. So grab a nice stitch marker, put it in place. Now I only have to count up to 20 before I add a stitch marker again. I don't have to get lost in all of the numbers. So sit back, relax, add those stitch markers because they are super helpful. Oh my gosh, look how perfect my tail was here. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so if you added stitch markers as you went along, it makes it very easy to count how many stitches you have. So I'm going to just come up here. So I have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and 20. For the extra small size, that's what I need. Now that we have all the stitches on there, we're ready to join to work in the round. First things first, we want to make sure that our cast on is not twisted, which is one of the reasons I love the long tail cast on, because I can take a look down here at this nice bottom ridge. And if I just go all the way around my needle here, kind of pulling my stitches across my cable, I just want to make sure that they're all going the same direction, that there's not any sort of twisting. So if I pull those apart, see how those are not twisted. Everything is good. Everything is good. But up here, see how it starts to like twist around? That would give me a Mobius if I didn't fix this. So I'm going to just push those and make sure that they're all on that side of my needle. So once I go one direction, I then go back and check again because it's easier to check twice than to get knitting, then pull it out and have to do it again. I mean, that's a hassle. So we're going to just go through one more time. And following my bottom ridge, I'm just going to make sure that nothing is twisted. Everything looks good. Is that twisted? That's okay, and that's okay. I think I'm good. I think I'm good here. Okay, so as long as you can see that bottom ridge and it doesn't look twisted around your needles, you are going to be good to join. So what we want to do is we want to take the needle that has the yarn attached to it, put that into your right hand, get your tail out of the way so you don't accidentally knit with it. Make sure everything's nice and straight again, just to make sure. Bring your needle with your very first stitch on it up to meet up with the other needle and hold that in your left hand. And we're going to join to work in the round. But before we do that, we want to add a stitch marker right here that's going to signify the start of the round. So you want it to look different than your other markers. So I'm just going to grab a different marker here and I'm going to put that there, and that will let me know that's the start of my round, okay? To work in the round, we don't have to do anything special. We're literally just going to start working into that first stitch of the round. And we'll begin working in seed stitch. And if you look at your pattern, you will see under pattern stitches that it has the seed stitch instructions written out, both for if you were to work it flat and how to work it in the round. So we want to make sure we're following the instructions for in the round. And we will work a knit one, purl one all the way to the end of the round. And then on round 2, we will work a purl one, knit one all the way to the end of the round. Okay, so let's go ahead, pick up our needles and get started. Here we go, picking up my work, and I do knit continental, but you could knit English or continental, totally up to you. We're literally just going to start knitting into this very first stitch. So I go into the stitch as if to knit, yarn over my needle, and then pull that out and off. All right, just give that a gentle tug. If that starts to open up a little bit as time goes on, it's totally fine. We can seam it closed with our nice little tail right here. All right, so we knit the first one, which means we have to purl the next one. So we bring our yarn between our needles to the front, go into that first stitch as if to purl, yarn around your needle, just like so. Don't go underneath it this way, okay? We want to go around this way, out and off. Bring our yarn between our needles to the back and knit. Bring our yarn between the needles to the front and purl. To the back and knit. To the front and purl. To the back and knit. To the front and purl. Okay, as you're working along, you will start to see that you have some seed stitch going, so you'll have some purls showing up every other stitch, and then we will do this all the way around, and on the next round we're going to alternate which ones we knit and purl. So continue working this all the way around. One knit, one purl, one knit, one purl. If you are working in the round for the very first time, or you have found that you struggle a little bit with working in the round and keeping track of the number of stitches, let me give you a couple pieces of advice. As you're working along and you're moving those stitches from one needle to the next, they might get a little bit bunched up. Make sure that you just take a little second and you just kind of move them along, all right? Just move them around the needle and continue on. And you'll move the stitches from the on the left needle up into play, and they'll be ready for you to work into them. Here's a convenient little tip. With your markers in place at every 20 stitches from the cast on, you know that you should always end with the purl stitch before you get to a marker, and your next stitch will be a knit. If for some reason that is not the case, you know you accidentally put too many knits or too many purls side by side, so you can just go back into that one little section of work and correct it without having to find out that you made the mistake by the time you get to the end. So these stitch markers are very helpful to let you quickly identify any sort of mix-up that you might have made just in that little 20 stitch section. As you come up to the end of your round, that first stitch might be a little bit loose, just like that, and that's totally okay. Like I said, we can use this tail to seam that closed. I'm not concerned about it. We will move our stitch marker over so that we're now ready for the second round. Now the second round of the seed stitch is a little bit different than the first because we will begin with a purl one and then do a knit one. So as we complete seed stitch, we are putting our purls on top of our knits and our knits on top of our purls. So our very first stitch here, we want to do a purl stitch. So I bring my yarn forward, complete my purl, bring my yarn back and complete my knit. Bring my yarn forward, work a purl, bring my yarn back and work a knit. As you're going along, if you notice that you're accidentally putting a knit into a knit stitch or a purl into a purl stitch, you know that you have made a mistake somewhere. It's real easy to put your work down, tink back to where the mistake is and correct it. but really take this time to take a look at the stitches on your needle. If you are looking at a purl stitch, if there is a purl bump, you know that you will be knitting it. If you're looking at a knit stitch, if it just looks like that V, you know you will be purling it. Remember to bring your yarn between your needles each time, otherwise you will get an accidental yarn over. And once again, if you've kept your markers in place, you can use this as a tool where the first stitch after your marker this time around should always be a purl. So bring your yarn between your needles to the front and purl, between your needles to the back and knit, between your needles to the front and purl, between your needles to the back and knit. You will continue doing this all the way around. As you come up to the end of your round, once again, you will slip your beginning marker and you're ready to continue on. By now, your work, you should be able to see what kind of looks like a checkerboard with your purl stitches, okay? Now we go back to row 1 where we do the knit 1 and then purl 1 and then knit 1 and then purl 1. And again, we're putting our knits in our purls and our purls in our knits. We will do rows 1 and 2 one more time, and then we do row 1 one more time after that, giving us a total of 5 rounds of seed stitch. Now you know how to do these 2 rounds, we just did them together. So what I want you to do is click pause, finish this part of your sweater, and then join me back here. We're going to learn how to work those increases to get ready for our cable stitches. And then we've got a whole lot of cable stitches to learn. So I'll see you right back here in a second. And welcome back. You have completed the seed stitch border and it's time to move on and prepare our fabric for those cable stitches. It is time to look at the Sazerac pattern again. We've completed our cast on and we have worked 5 rounds of seed stitch, and it's time to go to the next step. Depending on what size you're making, you will follow along the instructions for that size. Because I am working the smallest size, I will be working the instructions right here. If you're working the next 3 sizes, you will be following along with the instructions right here. The good news is both set of instructions use the same stitches, just at different rates, different intervals. So I'm going to follow along with the smaller set of instructions. If you are making one of the other sizes, please follow along with the pattern for your size. Even if you are not making the extra small size, continue watching this video and let me demonstrate to you how you will do these make one stitches. All right, so let's go ahead, grab your work, and let's get started. First thing I want you to understand is what is a make one. And a make one increase is where you will take that strand of yarn right there that is attached to the first stitch of your left hand needle and the stitch beneath that first stitch on your right hand needle. That strand there is attached to those 2 stitches. When we get that strand of yarn and place it on our left hand needle, and then when we knit it through the back leg of that stitch, we get an increase, okay? This is called a make one increase. You will use this make one increase no matter what size you are making. The different sizes determine on where you're making that make one increase, okay? So for the extra small, I am doing a make one increase right here at the start. So let's do that one more time. I like to take my left hand needle and I'm going to scoop up that bar right there. Scoop up that bar that's between those stitches. Now, as I scoop it up from front to back, that makes it so that the front leg is like stepping forward. And that means if I knit it through the front leg, if I were to knit it through this leg right here, it would make a big hole, and I don't want a hole. So I want to knit it through that back leg. So I'm going to take my right hand needle and go into the back leg of that stitch, just like so. Yarn over my needle, and then pull that yarn over through the stitch just like you normally would, and then off. Now I have created a stitch here. It's twisted, so it's not going to get a hole, and I've got an extra stitch. All right, so that's the first part of this set of instructions. The next part of this set of instructions is that we are going to continue working in our seed stitch pattern. So the next stitch we go to, if it's a knit, we will purl it. If it's a purl, we will knit it. So it's very important you can read your stitches. So my next stitch right here, I can see it looks like a V. There's my purl down there, but the stitch literally underneath the one that's on my needle, it looks like a V, so that is a knit stitch. So that means my next set of instructions for the size I'm making, I will purl that stitch. Now I'm supposed to do another make one. So again, if I take my left-hand needle, I want to grab that strand right there, okay? I'm going to take my left-hand needle, I'm going to scoop up that strand, and then I'm going to knit through the back leg. Okay, I'm going to get into the back leg of that stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, and pull through. So I've just created an extra stitch, okay? The trickiest part with all of this is keeping the seed stitch pattern as you're working these increases. So don't count the increase as part of your established pattern. Only keep your established pattern in the stitches you're actually working into. So if you're working into a knit, you want to purl it. If you're working into a purl, you want to knit it. So the next part of my instructions here as I look, I'm supposed to work 6 stitches in the established seed stitch pattern. So let's do 6 stitches. I'm looking at a purl, so I know I'm going to knit, that's 1. Purl, that's 2. Knit, that's 3. Purl, that's 4. Knit, that's 5. Purl, that's 6. Now I'm supposed to do a make one again. So again, I want to grab that strand right there. I'm going to take my left-hand needle and scoop it up. And then I want to get through the back leg. If you're having trouble getting through that back leg, something you could do is take your right-hand needle and essentially like scoop it around that stitch. Let me show you how to do that one more time. I'm going to move this so hopefully you can see. So there's that strand. And if I take my right hand needle and I'm in the front, right, I kind of went in it like I'm going to purl, and I scoop around just like so. So now my needle is through the back leg of that stitch, and I can carry on and knit it just like I'm supposed to, okay? The next part of my instructions say I'm supposed to work 9 stitches. Nope, that's not right. I'm supposed to work 8 stitches in the established pattern. So I've got 8 stitches to work here. So again, I want to look at my actual knitting and I know what I'm supposed to do because I'm looking at a purl stitch there. So I know I'm supposed to knit that one. I'm looking at a knit stitch there. It looks like those V's. So I know I'm supposed to purl that one. So that's 2 stitches, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once I do that, I'm supposed to do another make one. So again, I like to kind of pull my fabric down, scoop up that bar, go into the back leg, and knit it. So that's my make one. And now I'm supposed to do 5 stitches in pattern. So I'm looking at a purl, so I will knit 1, purl 2, knit 3, purl 4, and knit 5, okay? So that was my 5 in the pattern, and now it says to place marker. Well, conveniently, I already have a marker there. If my marker was not in the correct place, I would simply remove this marker and add a new one, whatever need be. So on this whole round, if your markers are not in the correct place from your previous rounds, just remove them and add the marker as you're supposed to on this round. Does that make sense? You just want to make sure that your markers are in the right place. So it's at this point I'm supposed to add a marker, and then I'm supposed to repeat from star 5 more times. So everything I just did right there, I'm supposed to repeat 5 more times. All right. So for example, here, I'm supposed to do a make one. So I pull my stitches apart, I find that bar, I pick it up, I work my make one. Then I'm supposed to do 1 stitch in pattern. I'm looking at a knit stitch, so I will purl it. Then I'm supposed to do another make one. So I find that bar, I pick up the bar, go into that bar, and complete that stitch. Now I'm supposed to do 6 stitches in pattern. So I'm looking at a purl stitch there. They're easy to find because you have that little purl bump directly underneath the loop that's on your hook. So that's really easy. As soon as you can find that purl stitch, you know what all the rest ones are supposed to be, right? Because if you're working seed stitch and that's a knit, because you knit on top of the purls, you know the next one will be a purl on top of a knit. So there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm supposed to do another make one. So I pick one up and go through the back leg. So go through the back leg and knit it. All right, and then I'm supposed to work 8 stitches in pattern. So I'm looking at that purl bump. So I will knit 1. I'll purl the second one. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now I'm supposed to do another make one. So I find my bar, I scoop it up, go into the back leg of my bar and knit it. And now 5 stitches in pattern. I can see my purl bump there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then it says place a marker, which I already have one there, convenient, and I can just slip my marker over. Can you see how that works? Okay, so I am working through the instructions for the extra small, small. If you are working for the medium large or the extra large 2X or the 3X, 4X or the 5X, 6X, follow along with the instructions as they're written in your pattern. Get all the way around this round and then join me back for the following round, all right? As I'm working through this, I also want to remind you again that if your markers are not in the right place as they're written in the pattern right now, just remove the ones that you had in place as you were doing your seed stitch band, and then add the markers in as they're written in the instructions. You'll have a total of 5 markers in place, which is exactly what we want. I just finished my last make one, and these are my last 5 stitches of this setup round. And whew, there we go. All right, those make ones can be a little bit tricky, and I know that they can make your fabric just a little bit snug because we're pulling up stitches, we're pulling up that strand between 2 stitches, which makes things a little bit tighter. Because cable stitches pull in a little bit, we have to make sure that we add stitches where our cable panel is, so that way our fabric doesn't cinch in on itself. It's going to lay nice and flat and make a finished piece that is adorable. That's why you have to work this setup round of increases on top of the seed stitch that you did before we jump into the cable panel. Let's take a look at the written instructions. I highly recommend you having your pattern in front of you so that way you can keep notes and follow along. Looking at the pattern, I know I don't need anything on the first page at this point in time. On the second page, I want to take a brief look at the abbreviations to see if there's anything that I don't recognize. And I don't see anything there that I don't recognize. But as I continue on, I know with the special stitches, we just did the make one increase, so I know how to do that. But then down here, there are specific cable stitches, and I might not know how to do any of these. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do them. The important factor is I want you to know where you can find the written instructions for all of these cable stitches when it's time for you to use them if you don't remember how to use them. So don't get caught up when you see the 2/1 right cable or the 2/1 right purl cable or the 2/1 left cable, the 2/1 left purl cable, the 2/2 right cable, and the 3/3 right cable. You will learn how to do all of those stitches, so don't stress about it. However, you will also notice as you continue on this page, we did look at the seed stitch pattern here when we were working on seed stitch, and you'll notice underneath there, this is where the cable panel instructions are. And the cable panel instructions are written for in the round and for flat, okay? In the round and for flat. If you don't know already, you are working in the round all the way up to the armholes, and then you will separate your sweater to work the front and the back separately, flat, back and forth. That's why you need to know how to work these stitches both in the round and flat. That's why we've given you all of the written instructions. For the body of your piece, first off, make sure you find the size you are making, and then make sure you're following along with the round instructions, okay? Just so you know, the instructions are written out for every single round of that repeat, okay? So for the extra small, it's 16 rounds. For the medium large, it's 20 rounds. For the extra large 2X, let me skip the page here, it's 24 rounds. For the extra large, for the 3X, 4X, that goes to 24 rounds. And for the 5X, 6X, that goes to 28 rounds. So do you see why it's really important you're following along with the instructions for the size you are making, okay? And again, you have those stitch markers in place. Hopefully you used them, and they will give you a clear, definitive point where each panel ends, all right? So those are the written instructions. If you want to follow along with the chart, let's take a look at what that looks like. In your pattern, you will find a chart for every size of the sweater, just like the written instructions. So for the extra small, you can see here, this is my key for the panel cable, all right? So I need to know what all of these stitches are in my cable panel cable. So as I move this up and I'm looking at my cable panel chart, row 1 right here on my chart will be the exact same as row 1 in my written instructions. So if you want to follow along with the chart, you absolutely could do that. If you want to follow along with the written instructions, you could do that. The best thing about the chart that I find is that I can see quickly if I'm working a purl stitch with these cable stitches, because there's that little dot within the symbol there that lets me know that that stitch is actually going to be a purl. So I find it very easy. The other thing I find easy about following with charts like this is I can quickly see that I'm working this cable stitch pattern across 4 stitches. I'm working this cable stitch pattern across 3 stitches, and the same with this over here. I find that very easy. Okay. If you are part of the VIP experience, as I mentioned, you have additional charts. I want to show you that you can see that the key is a little bit different for each one of those charts as well. So there is a key that is added to each section, but this here is the entire chart with all of the panels included in one demonstration. It's also all of the rounds that you would complete for the body of your sweater. So this is like one complete chart that you don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to repeat this how many times. You would just repeat across this entire row. But I will give you a heads up. This also includes the seed stitch at the bottom that you've already completed. Okay. And then as I go on, it also gives you the instructions for the front of the neck. So this will be the front of the neck chart when we come to it. And then you also get the instructions for the back of the neck chart when we come to it. Okay. All right. So that's how you do the chart. You can follow the chart or the written instructions. Now let's dive in. Let's actually work through a couple rounds so that way you can learn how to do all of these fun stitches, because even though all the charts are different, all of the stitches are the same. So you need to know how to complete each one of those cable stitches, and I'm going to show you how right now. Time for some cables. Here's my plan of attack. I know you can do knit stitches and purl stitches, and you're interested in learning how to do these cable stitches. But at the same time, you want to be able to work this cable panel all the way to your marker. So here's what I want to do. I want to follow along with row 1 of the cable panel for the extra small all the way to stitch number 24. That will take me to the marker. In the process of doing that, not only will you learn how to work all of these stitches along the first row for at least the first panel, but we will learn how to do this cable and this cable. Then we will work round 2. And then on round 3, we get to learn 3 more cables because this one and this one are the same. So in the process of doing 3 rounds together, we will learn all 5 of the cable stitch patterns we need to learn. Now, I do want to mention again, and I know I'm saying this over and over, but it's because I want to make sure that somebody isn't missing this. All of the cable panels are specific to the size you are making. So the extra small will look different than the medium large, which will look different than the extra large 2X, and so on and so forth. So even though my stitches look like this, yours might be a little bit different. That's okay. As long as you understand how to make these stitches, how to read the pattern, you can make the size you are making. And hopefully, again, you put those stitch markers in because each one of these cable panels has the correct number of stitches as you will have between your markers. All right. So we have my little piece that I'm working on here, and we're going to work with row 1. And just a reminder, the cable panel written instructions are the same as your chart instructions. Okay. So you can follow one or the other. I have both of them side by side here, so that way I know what these cables are called because my key is on the other page. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Here is my work that we've been working on, and I'm supposed to begin with 4 knits. So I will knit 4 stitches. We're no longer maintaining that seed stitch down here, okay? We're just following along with our cable panel. Once I knit 4, I'm supposed to purl 4. So I bring my yarn between my needles and I will purl 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I come to my very first 2/1 RPC. That's a 2/1 right purl cable. So what this tells me is this cable stitch will look like it's leaning towards the right, and one of the stitches in this cable, the stitch in back, is going to be a purl. So here's how we're going to complete that stitch. We're going to grab your cable needle. It can be a needle like this, it can be a plain needle like this, or maybe it looks like a needle like this. Whichever you want to use, you choose it and pick what's best for you. I'm just going to grab this one because it's nice and big and you can see how this works. So we are going to take the first stitch off of the needle and we are going to hold it to the back. So I'm just holding it to the back. It's just, I'm moving it out of the way because that's all a cable is. It's just moving stitches out of the way so that way we can redistribute them on the needle. Once that needle is moved to the back, I will knit 2 stitches from my left hand needle. So I knit 1 and I knit 2. Now this stitch right here that I have on my cable needle, I want to purl it. And I can either purl it directly from this cable needle or I can put it back onto my left hand needle. I will be honest and I tell you, I like to put them back on my left hand needle. It's something about it makes it easier for me. So I put that stitch back on my left hand needle and I will purl it. And voila, we just did a 2/1 right cable purl, right purl cable. So this is what it looks like. Doesn't look like much, right? It's not going to look like much until you continue on, all right? So don't be like, oh, I didn't do it right. Chances are you did. It just doesn't look like too much here at the beginning. So that is our 2/1 RPC. Now I knit 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now it's time for me to do a 2/1 LPC. 2/1 LPC lets me know that this cable will lean to the left and the stitch in back will be purled. To do a 2/1 LPC, for this one, I'm going to take the 2 stitches that are right here at the start of my left hand needle and I go into them like I'm purling them and I slip them off and I'm going to hold them to the front. Okay, I'm going to hold those to the front. Now I will purl 1 stitch from my left hand needle. Take these 2 stitches and I can either knit them directly off my cable needle or put them back onto my left hand needle, which is my preferred way. So I've put them back on my left hand needle and now I just knit them, knit 2 of them. And that is a 2/1 LPC. Doesn't look like much, right? It's not going to, okay? It will look like something as you keep going. Then I go ahead and I finish off this section of my work by purling 4. And 4, which will bring me to my marker. For you, depending on the number of stitches you have, if you're doing one of the other sizes, yours is a little bit of a different sequence, but now you know how to do those 2 cables. They really don't look like much. When all of this is done, we're going to pull the sample in and we're going to take a look at all of the cables, but I want to get through how to do all of these first. So I'm going to just keep on going. In the interest of making sure you understand how to do that and you don't have to rewind, I'm going to work that section one more time for you. So we start off with a knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I purl 4, so I bring my yarn between my needles and purl. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I have a 2/1 RPC. Take my cable needle, I'm coming back here. I go into that first stitch as if to purl. I take it off and it's on my cable needle now, and I hold it to the back. It's just hanging out there in the back. I will knit 2 stitches from my left hand needle. So 1 and 2. Now I come back here to the stitch that I pulled off, and I can either knit directly from this cable needle or put it on my left hand needle. I always prefer it on my left hand needle, so I just always do that. And I'm supposed to purl it, right? So my yarn is forward and I purl that stitch. Now I'm supposed to knit 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We have a 2/1 LPC. So I have these 2 stitches here. I'm going to slip my cable needle into both of those stitches, pull them off and hold them to the front. I purl this next stitch on my left hand needle. And then these 2 stitches I move to the front. I'm going to put those back on to my left hand needle and I knit them. So knit 1, knit 2. Finish off my section with purl 4. And voila. Again, doesn't look like much yet. Don't worry, it will eventually. Let's go ahead, complete this entire first round of cables. If you're working along and you don't get to your stitch marker before you have reached the end, that means something went wrong. You got off somewhere. So all you would need to do is tink back along that section and you can fix your mistake within those stitch markers. That's why the stitch markers are so helpful. So get all the way around this round, meet me back here, and we will work on round 2 together. Just hit pause on the video. How does it feel? You completed your very first round of cables on this sweater. We only have like 100 and some to go, but that's okay. You can absolutely do this. All right, let's take a peek at the pattern because round 2 is super easy. One thing you will notice about cable patterns is that you don't typically cable every single round, okay? You might cable every other round when you have traveling cables like what we're doing here. What's happening here are the 2 stitches that we keep as knits in all of these. They're going to look like they are traveling along our fabric and really outlining this area of our pattern. It's going to look really cool. For that reason, we work these cables every other round or every other row. The cables out here, these are a 4-stitch cable for the 2 smaller sizes and a 6-stitch cable for the 3 larger sizes. And these cables are only worked every 4 rounds if it's a 4-stitch cable and every 6 rounds if it's a 6-stitch cable. Let me show you the extra large size. So this is the 1X, 2X. So you can see here that it's a different color because this is a 3/3 right cable, but this cable is worked every 6 rounds, whereas the 2/2 right cable is worked every 4 rounds. So knowing that, you don't have to do like this full, really big row of cables every other round. It's just one every now and again. So for round 2, We just have knits and purls for this entire row. We don't have to do anything special. Now, by this point, I know that you know how to do a knit and a purl, and I know that you know how to read the pattern, and I know that you know how to look at this chart and know that you are going to knit the ones that are all just the plain squares. You will purl the ones that are dots, and you can carry on and follow through knowing that each one of these squares represents a stitch. Pretty easy stuff. I don't think you need me to show you anything there. So for that reason, I want you to go ahead, complete round 2 100%. Just hit pause, join me back here, and on round 3, I am not only going to show you these 3 cables, but I'm also going to show you the 3/3 right cable for the larger sizes. So originally I said that there were 5 cables that you would learn. It's actually like you're going to learn a total of 6, but you will only use 5 in your sweater, depending on what size you're making. So anyways, go complete round 2. Hit pause. I'll see you back here in a second. That wasn't so hard, was it? I told you this cable sweater was going to be pretty easy. All right, let's jump in to round 3. And on round 3, it has us begin immediately with some cables. So for the 2 smaller sizes, we're going to do a 2/2 right cable. And all that means is this cable is going to look like it's twisting to the right as you complete it, okay? There are no purls in this cable. That's why you'll see down here, it's a 2/2 RC. There's no P in the abbreviation. So there are no purls. We're just going to knit these stitches, and this is how we're going to do it. Again, you want to make sure you have your cable needle. We're going to take the first 2 stitches on our left hand needle, slip them to your cable needle, hold them to the back. Go ahead, make sure your yarn is in back, knit 2 stitches from your left hand needle. I always make sure I get those nice and snug. And then we want to knit these 2 stitches that are on our cable needle. Again, guys, I know that I keep saying this, but I love to move them to my actual needle and knit them. There's just something about it. I think it finishes better. So then I just knit these 2 stitches from my left-hand needle. And we get that nice little twist. All right, pretty easy. You see that? Now, if you're working one of the larger sizes, instead of a 2/2 right cable, you're going to work a 3/3 right cable, which means you're going to move 3 stitches to your cable needle, then knit 3 stitches from your left-hand needle, and then go back and knit those 3 stitches that are held to the back on your cable needle. It's really that easy. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Let me get through this row for the 2 smaller sizes. All right, after I complete my 2/2 right cable, I will purl 3 stitches. And now I have a 2/1 RC, so a 2/1 right cable, which means I'm dealing with 3 stitches. I'm going to take that first stitch off my left-hand needle, put it onto my cable needle, hold it to the back. Then I knit 2 stitches from my right-hand needle. And then I will put that stitch back to my left-hand needle from the cable needle, and I will knit it. I'm not purling it, I knit it. There's no purl in that one, it's just a knit. All right, again, doesn't look like much yet, but it will, I promise. The next step, I'm supposed to purl 1 and then knit 1. And now I've reached the section of my work where I have 4 knit stitches. So this section will always be stockinette. For the 2 smaller sizes, this will be 4 stitches. For the 3 larger sizes, this will be 6 stitches, okay? So for this one, I want to do a 2/2 right cable again. You guys remember how to do it? Take our cable needle. I'm going to slip the first 2 stitches from my left-hand needle to my cable needle and hold it to the back. Then I knit 2 stitches from my left-hand needle. And then I knit the 2 stitches that I moved out of the way. I knit those, and I have my 2/2 right cable. Again, if it was a 3/3, I'd be working with 3 stitches and 3 stitches. It's just that easy. Once I finish that, I will knit 1 stitch, purl 1 stitch, Then I have a 2/1 left cable. So this time they're going to go to the left. So I have my cable needle. I move these 2 stitches from my left-hand needle and I hold them to the front this time. I will knit 1 stitch from my left-hand needle, and then I will knit the 2 stitches from my cable needle. Knit 1 and knit 2. And I finish off this section with 3 purls. 1, 2, 3. Again, it doesn't look like much yet. You can start to see that something's starting to happen there, and something's starting to happen there, and something's starting to happen there, but we aren't real sure what it is yet because we have to get more fabric. Okay, before I show you the finished sample and we look at cables, I do want to show everybody how to do that 3/3 right cable. So we're going to pretend that this is set up for a 3/3 right cable and just do it. Okay, so I'm going to slip my marker and we're going to pretend we're working a 3/3 right cable, and it would be worked over 6 stitches, okay, 6 stitches. You're going to take the first 3 stitches off your left-hand needle and hold those to the back. Then you will knit the next 3 stitches from your left-hand needle. And then you guessed it, you will knit those 3 stitches that you held to the back. Put those back on your left-hand needle and you will knit those. And voila, you have a 3/3 right cable. Doesn't look like much. I know, it always looks like just a blob at the start of any cable project. It isn't until you get around like round 6, 7, 8 before you're like, oh, it's starting to look a little bit like something, which is exciting and a wonderful part of making this sweater, because as you complete each round, you're just like, I can't wait to make the next round because you want to see what it looks like. All right, hopefully all of that makes sense to you. What I want to do now is I want to pull in the sample and I want to show you what it looks like on the sample compared to the chart so you can exactly see where you are on this sweater. All right, so let's take a peek. I love pulling in the sweater so that we can take a look at what is happening. Okay, so this is just a small little section of the sweater, but this is a very good representation of what it is you're doing. You can see here that we have this nice cable pattern right here going up the middle of this lovely panel. And we have a cable right here going up the middle of this lovely panel. This is one of the larger sizes. My sample is a larger size. So this is more a representation of this chart than it is of this chart, simply because these will have a little bit smaller cables because they're 4 stitches versus this is 5 stitches. Same idea though. See how we get the diamond? It's still the same idea. We just have larger cables happening. So as we are looking at our charts, we know that we have stitch markers at the beginning and the end of the chart. No matter what size you're making, you always have 6 panels, okay? You're gonna have 3 in front, 3 in back. And so as we're looking at this, what you will notice here, let me make sure I'm in camera. What you will notice here is these cables here are these. This section here is this. So if you were looking at this and you had markers in place, it's as if you have a marker right here and you have a marker right here. Does that help you visualize how this is getting worked together? So when I tell you that the stitches that are worked along right here that you work every other round, they are traveling stitches. See how it looks like these 2 knit stitches, this column of knits essentially, they look like they're traveling across the fabric. And eventually they're going to travel across the fabric this way and then go back. They meander all the way through. And that's because of the type of cable we're working. So these cable stitches, they are cables because we're changing the the order in which we're knitting those stitches, but they are not a twisted cable like this one, right? These here, these are twisted cables. These ones are more traveling stitches where they're highlighting or outlining this portion of the pattern. And then inside this diamond, we have this beautiful seed stitch. And then if you can notice, this is a diamond too, right? Can you see the diamond here? And so it's reverse stockinette. Both really highlight the cables and give a lot of really great rich texture in the piece itself. So I think that this is a really great way to understand what it is you are making when it comes to looking at the chart and looking at the sample and seeing exactly where your stitch markers are. Okay, again, the smaller size will just be a little bit more narrow because you don't need as much width as the larger sizes, and that's why it looks a little bit different. So for your homework, let's keep on looking down here at the sample. You are going to, let me make sure I'm in frame again. Okay. You are going to start down here and work all the way up to the armhole, and you're working in the rounds all the way up to the armhole. Okay, that's your homework for this section of the sweater. Once you finish that, you are going to be a cable knitting pro, I promise. And the next two bits are going to be just a piece of cake. So I can't wait to see your Sazerac cabled knit sweater. Make sure you take pictures as you're working along and share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or MB1stFall, and I will see your sweater and I will smash your like button. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, I know I just gave you a ton of information, but I want to make sure all of you out there know that you still have time to get the VIP experience. Not only do you get the ad-free PDF, but you will get a bonus pattern for the cabled comfort blanket. On top of all of that, you get extra charts, you get extra video instructions. It's just a plethora of information. Think of it as a pattern that is supercharged. It's a lot of fun. You will not be disappointed. So if you like today's video, you will love the VIP experience. Go check it out.